that tap.
Yeah.
It's like it's been out for a week. We're all sick of it.
All right.
Stop.
Okay.
I hate that too.
Yes.
Good, we're knocking them out today.
Your things that piss me off.
All right, we need some baseline silence here.
So,
Welcome to another week of the Buffalo Game Space podcast. I'm Greg Giles.
John Futscher.
Ryan Koons.
Kendall. No last name.
Who are you, Quasi?
Yeah.
Quasi introduced himself as Quasi one name, and then he got credited by me as Quasi one name.
That's hysterical.
Eat it, Quasi.
Also,
So,
Fudge, why are you changing up the freaking order on me here? I was going to say.
I looked at you,
Here's like,
and then you looked at her.
Like routine.
I was like, we were both looking at you, and you're like, nah.
Iron, I will not be moved.
It's like, I guess it's like, I can't handle rotating in the opposite direction. I like routine, always clockwise. What is this counterclockwise nonsense?
Also, you're making a really weird face at the computer, like right as we started. It was really funny.
Just making sure Greg's got it on lock after the technical difficulties started.
Let's not jinx it.
And we're just going to keep talking about all this whole time. It's all recorded.
And Game Space Podcast.
Good radio. So, couple of things this week. Couple of big things. Well, one big thing. The other thing, though, we'll get to the big thing. And you'll know when we're there. First, we're going to talk about...
Sex joke right there.
Yeah.
You guys are just making it worse. Like, I'm just going to say normal things, and you're going to go like...
No, it was more just like the rambly vagueness of it.
It's not... It's hype.
Oh.
Yeah. So, Kendall, you played Beginner's Guide.
I did.
Which is a game I've also played. And have you guys played or heard of this?
I'm aware of it in the sense that I know what it is and its general premise.
In the sense that I mentioned it the last time we did a podcast.
No, but I mean, I'd heard of it before then. I mean, it's the same guys who did the Stanley Parable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And it's similar to the Stanley Parable in that how it plays, but it takes on a different topic, basically, an environment.
Yeah. And similar in that it's sort of like... it's... You know, like Stanley Parable was about... I actually didn't play it because it made me sick. I tried really hard, but I got the sense it was about a lot about game design in a lot of ways, but probably spoke to more things in life than game design through that foundation.
Made you sick in what way? Like physically ill? Like motion
Yeah,
sick?
because it's in the Source Engine, and Source Engine games, by default, if they're not configured correctly, make me really sick.
Oh, wow.
It's field of view settings, so if they're not wide enough, it's a problem that some people have, where you just don't get enough like peripheral context, I guess, and it triggers motion sickness. And
Gotcha.
so I couldn't get that game to play correctly, so I just couldn't play it.
And you thought the Stanley Parable was a lot about game development? Because I thought, and this is again somebody outside looking in, that the Beginner's Guide was much more about dev, whereas the Stanley Parable is much more about just like storytelling in general.
Trust me, we're going to have a whole discussion about this in a minute.
I think in order for this conversation to be interesting, this is going to get really spoilery, and I don't think probably either of you guys is going to play it anyways. And anyone listening, if you are going to play it,
you're in the podcast.
Yeah. So I don't know. I can't say. Did you get anybody play that game, Stanley Parable?
I haven't. My friend has it.
Okay.
I know nothing about it.
Well, so I guess it's not useful to make any comparisons since none of us have played
I mean,
it.
I know a bunch about it. So, like, for example, like, there's a narrator that exists throughout the game,
Right.
and he's basically narrating what you're doing.
Yeah.
And part of the game and what it's attempting to do is the narrator kind of is like, you're presented with two doors, and it's like, Stanley goes through the blue door, and you can go through the blue door, and he'll keep talking, or you can go through the other door, and he's like, no, like he went through the blue door, and you can kind of like by your actions kind of either obey or disobey the storytelling commands kind of, and it changes what happens, right?
Yeah, and I took that as a commentary on choice in games, or rather lack thereof, and how just sort of there's like an invisible hand in these things that tries to force you to certain paths, and just that's how I saw that game. Do you think that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense in the context of like a commentary on like game design and like storytelling.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, most narrative in games are driven by an invisible hand. There's
Right.
nothing. Things are determined as much as people want to act like a lot of games have like a lot of open choice, or you can kind of construct your own narrative. More or less, most of them are kind of predetermined based on binary choices you make and how many they add up to. And some do it better than others. Like Mass Effect does it really well for certain things and really bad in other areas.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of other games where it's really kill this guy or kill this guy, and it's like straight up binary. Like
Right.
choose one or two, and then the game goes from there. And the branching narrative is just literally like a binary tree.
Mhm.
In defense of game developers everywhere, though, that shit is wicked hard to
It's
do.
an impossible-
nearly impossible.
Yeah, I would say it's literally impossible
Right.
to have it be
Right.
complete. So Mass Effect, if you're unfamiliar with the series, which everybody
Don't
should at this point.
spoil this for me. I have not played all the games.
Mass Effect?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about the actual things that
Okay.
happen in Mass Effect. What I'm going to say is that Mass Effect as a concept
Mhm.
started with Mass Effect 1, and they basically said, we're making a trilogy,
Yeah.
like out the gate, before 1 was even like a mega hit. Like there was like, we're making 3 games, and everything you do in every game is going to carry over to the next game.
Yeah.
And so Mass Effect 1 plays very similar to like any other kind of spacey action RPG. It's a really well done one, although Mass Effect 1 is debatable of how well like it pulled off some of its mechanics. But the bottom line is when you finish the game, a couple of years later Mass Effect 2 came out, you could import your save from
Yeah.
Mass Effect 1
And
into
it
2.
takes your choices.
And it took you the way your character looked, their choices, like the things that you did in 1, it imported them into 2, and it affected the world in 2.
Yeah.
And 2 played out. But if you can just picture in your mind a tree, kind of like from like a root,
Imagine
like
if you will.
growing up, and the branches kind of coming out from it. And each time you add a choice, it branches out and it branches out.
Yeah.
Now, just by the sheer power of numbers, once you've done that a few times, things get real complicated. And when you do it a lot, you're basically talking on the order of decisions and different states that the world could be in.
You're talking about
in
my nightmares.
billions and potentially trillions of states if you take into all of them into account at all times.
Mhm.
And that's just, you can't do it. Like
Yeah.
there's no way to do that in a storytelling fashion and make it be coherent at all. It's just the sheer amount of content of writing, voice recording, artwork, you just can't do it all. It's not possible. And so I was always concerned with Mass Effect 3 way before it even came out, because I was always just looking at that just as like a number, just like
Yeah.
how? Like how? Like once you've had, 100 choices happen, how do you make that like feel like it's still a thing?
Yeah.
And they ended up basically doing what I was kind of worried that they were going to do, is that they had to start making lumping decisions. They basically said that anybody that's in like state 1,000 to 100,000 goes this way. Everybody's in state 100,000 to 2 million goes this way. Like
Yeah.
you had to start like bundling them together and then pushing them down a story path,
Yeah.
because you can't do one for every state. It's literally impossible.
Right.
Like from a sheer like human manpower years.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like one of the stories I'm working on right now, ideally I want to have like 4 very distinctly different endings to it, and like, again, like I haven't really started this, but it's an idea, like the first like major split in the story happens like right away, so it's not like one of those games where it's like, oh, like the last like cutscene is different depending on your choices. It's like actually like a very different game depending on like your first choice.
Right.
Game.
So
And that's
game
hard. Like
Well-
I want to have 4 endings. That's hard.
Well,
That's only
Chrono
4.
Trigger had 18, something like that, way back in the day.
Yeah.
But basically, you're kind of ticking boxes in like a dip switches. You're kind of setting the switches, and at the end of the game, it kind of checked your switches against like, this is the ending you get.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like constantly reinforcing all the decisions you made. It was kind of more just like, here's the set, and now make a call.
Mhm.
So if you use things like AI and machine learning, you can make the games understand a lot more about what you've done. But fundamentally, if you want it to be like coherent and like have like a writer's hand on it, where it makes it like a really good story,
Mhm.
and you want the writer to be able to be responsible for that story as opposed to the player per se,
Yeah.
then you kind of have to start making decisions.
Yeah.
And one of them that I thought did this really well, where it's very blatant and it's very binary, just like the A-B choice, but it made it a very impactful decision was The Witcher 2 specifically.
Mm-hmm.
In The Witcher, everybody starts in the same place in The Witcher, and you go to the same town in the beginning of The Witcher. When you complete the missions around that town, you basically have to make a choice. Like, do you back this guy or do you back this guy? And once you pick one, you go do completely, as in mutually exclusive, entirely different paths down the rest of the game.
Mm-hmm.
They have zero to do with each other from there on out.
Yeah.
So you can start that game over. You're going to play the first town again the same, and you make the other decision.
And
You're going to go do it. You're going to go to a completely separate second act. You're going to be completely different characters. You're going to have completely different stories that come out of that. You're going to have some crossover. There's a spot by which you can kind of cross over and dip your toe into the other side that you would have seen. But you show up at that place as an enemy, as opposed to like being part of it.
Yeah.
And then it goes on to like a final act where it kind of brings it back together and affects your decisions. But the entire second act is like mutually exclusive based on this decision, and it's like full content, full storylines, full characters that people that didn't make that choice never see. They're like, "Who? What are you talking about?" And I thought that was a very powerful thing from just like sharing your experience thing, and also the quality of the content, because they were able to make those people like very fleshed out in those areas and not have to make them understand all the other things you were doing. They were kind of just like, they just separated them.
Yeah,
and said, if you went this way, this stuff happens.
I really love when games can like do that and pull that off, because I mean, like, you know, I think maybe we talked about this before. Like when Life is Strange came out, and I played that, and I was like, you know, they're all like, look at all the decisions, and it's just like, I feel like what I'm doing doesn't matter, and it has no effect. And if I play this again, it's going to be the same exact game, no matter what decisions I make. And like, I really like being able to just go in, make a different choice, and have like basically a completely different experience.
See, I know we had Jess in here, and she had been playing the hell out of some Life is Strange, and she was kind of talking about almost the opposite, where she felt like she was like stressed out about like almost every decision, because she felt like every decision the game had weight.
Okay, the big decisions, yes, but then it's like all like the little stuff, and I'm like, no, I don't even know why I'm making a choice.
Well, that's what she was even worried about. She was like, she got to the point where she's like, when I'm playing and a character comes up to me and it's like, I got a problem with this thing, like, and you decide to like either help them or kind of blow them off, and like you're not mean to them at all, but you're like, oh yeah, I got to do this other thing, like I'll see you later. And then, you know, a week later in game time they come back and they're like, fuck you. And she's like, wait, what? Happen. No, like I thought, oh, now I got to rewind this and try it the other way, and like I'll help her with her little problem. And so she was like kind of stepping forward and backward in time constantly, of like in the game, like playing multiple versions of the game at the same time, because she wanted to see all the little things that were different. Right,
definitely. And I mean, like, and that actually does happen in the game. If you like do this one thing, you piss someone off, like they're like, wow, you're a shitty friend. But yeah, I mean, like, I definitely get that. Like, you know, you can do something one way and someone will say one thing, and then you do it another way and they'll say a different thing. But I mean, you're still having like the same conversation, no matter like what choice you make. It's not like, you know, completely separate realities.
Right. Like so that's a trap that The Walking Dead and like Telltale games fall into, is that they Telltale. The Telltale games are really well put together, and like I enjoyed a lot of them, even though I haven't played a lot since like episode 4 of The Walking Dead. I haven't played much, but I really like the amount of decisions they made. They made them feel like there was weight to them, and then also the mechanic of not having to give an answer, where you can kind of just be quiet, and that also counts as an answer. It makes the story feel like it's partially yours, even though when you kind of compare notes with other people, there's major touch points that happen no matter what you do. Like there's certain areas you go, no matter what you do, there's like, you're not going to go to the town and find yourself in the store at some point. Yeah. You're not going to not like find this character like running from the rooftops at this one point, no matter who else is alive or dead by the time you get there. But that changes who else is interacting. Anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and that's definitely something that I'm like sort of figuring out with my game, is like, what are the things that are going to be the same, that like have to happen, and what are going to be the things that really make the different branches unique. So anyway, we should go back to
the beginner's guide. How does this all relate to
that? Not at all. So Beginner's Guide is similar, though, in that it largely orbits the story around like game development and just exploring like the meaning you can derive from these things. And so the premise is you are
the way that it's like pitched when you watch the trailer is, it's like you're going through like this person's computer and looking at the games that they've made, and like, you know, it sort of pitches it to you, at least this is how I interpret it, is like you're going to go through it and like make your own conclusions, but then, you know, like the Stanley Parable, you do have a narrator who's, you know, as you're going through things, is like he's giving his opinion on what you're seeing.
Well, it's told from the perspective of a guy who knows another guy. So the narrator is a person who knows a designer who goes by the name of like Coda.
Yeah,
Coda, basically. And the narrator knows this guy because Coda used to make Counter-Strike maps, and the narrator really liked his Counter-Strike maps, which is kind of cool because it starts out in a Counter-Strike map.
Yeah.
Like this, not a map I've ever seen. I don't think it's real. Maybe it is, but... and then it kind of starts there, and then you go down the road of like he starts to explore the psyche of Coda through the stuff that he makes. So he goes into these levels, and they're very like art oriented. They're not like things. They're not games, or they're more like these abstract commentaries or messages that the narrator then extrapolates meaning from, and he interprets these things, and he starts to like become concerned about Coda basically through this.
Yeah. One of the things that the narrator said that I sort of really latched onto was like he was describing a conversation that he'd had with Coda about like what makes a game quote playable. You know, and he was like going through like Coda's games, and he's like, but like, you know, you one of the ones that you go through, like you get stuck in like a prison, and like in the original game, like you literally are in there for an hour real time before like the door will open and let you out, and you're just standing there like
right.
You know, and he's like, well, maybe this should be like a little more like accessible. And then I thought this was kind of hilarious, like supposedly Coda sent him like a file, and it was labeled like playable games, and it was just like a room. And that's it. Nothing in the room. Just a room. And all of them were like exactly the same. And
There's
I thought
like
that was
thousands
really
of that
hilarious.
or something like that.
Yeah.
I have a question for everybody here. And it's like, so I'm listening to this. And I watched a stream, when like the day it came out, I watched a streamer play through, I think, most of that game.
Yeah.
And when you're playing through these games, they're obviously like meant to be impactful and meaningful. And I'm sure the developer wants people to take something away from the different, you know, demos that the game is filled with or whatever. But like, are you ever playing through this game and are just like overcome with a sense of like, this is just indie, pretentious hipster garbage?
Yes, to the point where I actually quit playing it, and I didn't finish the game myself. I watched somebody else finish it.
Right.
And I will tell you, if you hang in there, though,
it takes a turn.
It looks like that, but I guess it's not.
Let's talk about it.
I'm going to say, let's just cut to the chase, is what I guess I'm trying to say is what you end up discovering is like what you think you're seeing and what the narrator is seeing is like the psychological unraveling of Coda, the guy. And he's looking at these maps and he goes, Coda feels this way because you can tell because he did this, this, and this.
He constantly was making like prisons that you can't escape from, and he's all like, this means that like Coda feels like trapped and like he's isolated.
Right, and he's like trying to help this guy, and he's like, we need to help Coda. Coda needs to keep making stuff and blah blah blah. What ends up happening, and Ryan, you might find this interesting. What ends up happening is it turns out in the end that Coda's not unraveling. What's actually happening is this guy is a super fan, and he's projecting all of his stuff onto this guy who made a thing. And he's trying to force meanings that aren't there. Like, he looks at the guy's work and he's like, Coda's this, Coda's that, Coda, you need help, Coda. And the Coda guy's fine. And I think in hindsight, I think a lot of these maps where it was like imprisoned and a lot of stuff where these maps were being interpreted as Coda going into like a dark place was actually Coda trying to push this guy away. So instead of Coda running, like the guy's like, oh, Coda's going away, but really Coda's trying to tell this guy like, leave me alone, basically. And so it actually, and my guess is that this game was somewhat of a reaction to how fans interpreted the Stanley Parable, right? Like they turned around and they said like, you know, they tried to like hang on to this greatness. Somebody did something great basically, and they want to tag onto it. They want to like they want to, I don't know how to say it. Like
they want to imbue it with meaning that isn't necessarily there. Like sometimes the famous quote, like, sometimes a cigar is a cigar, right? Like,
Yeah.
when you try to break down everything and, like, overanalyze anything, like, when you get into that whole,
This is
like,
why I did not major in English.
this is when you get into the whole, like, movie critic, game critic, like, art critic, insert creative endeavor here, critic mode. There's value in being able to break things down, understand, like, what's good, what's bad, and how things work together, and, like, what things you like or what can be appreciated by other people, and, like, where there's beauty in something, and, like, and how it was done.
Mm-hmm.
There's another thing to, like, lose yourself in that and start thinking that that's the only thing that matters. Like, your criticism of it is the
Exactly.
thing,
And
is the
also-
thing that is real about it, and where he's like, oh, he put this box here, so he must be suicidal.
Right.
Like, I need to find him and save him because I'm the only one who can. It's like, no, you're not the hero.
And also it's also a substitute for actually doing things yourself, right? If you sit there and can interpret and pull all this stuff out of this thing, a lot of people do that because they want to make something great, but they can't, or they won't, or they're too lazy, or they're too scared. So they turn to this person who has made something, and they start getting all caught up in interpreting and criticizing and commenting on it.
Right. And
And they actually have like no authority to do that.
This might be completely wrong, but I like it as an example regardless. I heard, or basically the rumor was that, if you're familiar with the Beatles at all, like in the song "I Am the Walrus," it's crazy town, right? Like, the lyrics are nuts. I mean, it's a great song. I love that song, but I heard that basically John Lennon wrote the lyrics to that song because he heard that college students in NYU were taking courses about interpreting, like, Beatles lyrics and, like, their deeper meanings and, like, what the Beatles were trying to actually tell people, and they were writing all these treatises and, like, these dissertations on, like, all this stuff, and he was, like, reading them being like, these guys are way off. Like, I had a much simpler, like, more peaceful message than, like, what these people were trying to say that I said. So he basically wrote a gibberish song just to fuck with them. Just be like,
And see-
it's like,
and you
let's see
could-
what you do with that. And, like,
And that's
I'm going to
the
read
thing.
these essays and laugh my ass off because I know that this is gibberish.
That's a good parallel to what the point Kendall made, where he handed that guy a disc of just nonsense levels. And
Yeah,
he's
just
like,
playable games
what
with
does
all
this
these
mean,
rooms."
motherfucker? How about that? You know, like, and the guy, and he's
Yeah.
like, no, you can't make games like this, Coda. Like, you gotta,
Yeah.
you know,
Totally
and-
didn't get it.
yeah, exactly. And that's it. And it's cool, but like, Ryan and I clearly had a problem with the delivery on this one, and
particularly in the way that, like, it's from what I watched, it didn't appear to be very fun at all, right? And
it
I mean,
wasn't.
that's-
Yeah, no, and it,
You know, I mean, you just described sitting in a room for an hour.
Well, the game doesn't actually make you do
yeah, the
that,
game will
but-
say like, what you do in this level is you sit here for an hour, but we'll skip you through that, and
Oh,
we'll skip
okay.
you through that.
Thank
Yeah.
But
God.
I mean, yeah.
I would not have played that.
No
I would have
message
been like,
is
no.
worth an hour.
No.
Right? I mean,
No, but yeah, it's not a fun game to play. It's
It's the kind of game where you, like, you finish it, you're sort of sitting there, and you're like, the fuck just happened to my head?
it's more like reading a book than playing a game.
sure.
Right, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because
Sure.
there's a difference between fun and engaging that a lot of people draw that line. Like, some people play games because they want their games to be fun, and that's awesome. I want my games to be fun too. But that's like, some people want them to be something else. They want them to tell a deeper story or have, like, a message to them. And they want to experience something new or feel something different that they haven't done with another game. Same thing, like, indie movies came out of the same response where they kind of seem like Hollywood blockbusters and, like, they're not making anything that has anything to do with people anymore. Like, I want to tell a story about a guy in a car having a conversation with his girlfriend or whatever. And it's going to bore the hell out of most people, but some people might, like, really, like, be engaged by that and get deep into this story between these two people. And so,
Yeah. And I'm definitely the niche audience who's like, this is great. Like, I actually really enjoy the game, so
Yeah.
fuck you.
Wow.
Well, all right. So actually, I know you totally did that in jest, but that's another thing that I've really.
Are you going to look into the deeper meaning?
Yes,
of
I'm
it?
going to. No, I'm actually going to
You're
use it
gonna
as.
psychoanalyze me?
No, I'm going to use it as a segue to get on a soapbox.
Ladies and gents, hold on to your seats.
No, I'm not really. I'm more just like one of the things that just I'm just using this as an opportunity to rant about a personal pet peeve of mine recently is that
Go for it.
when somebody doesn't like something that somebody else likes it doesn't mean you hate them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
because people don't like the same things or enjoy the same music or media or consumable A here, does not mean that they're bad people. And they deserve no vileness or disrespect for their choice in media consumption.
With the exception of people that aren't voting for my political candidate.
Yes.
I agree.
We're playing Pokemon Go.
Right, yeah.
Assimilating.
Yeah, that's true, and that's a good thing for people to remember, including myself sometimes. But Beginner's Guide was, I thought it was in the end a very good game. I think if it had it was a pretty short game, and I think it should have even actually been shorter.
I find it interesting that you're kind of like Walker. You're like, it's pretty good, but it's like, it wasn't good enough to make me keep playing it. Like, I tapped out and I watched somebody else do it.
Yeah. Well, because I could tell it, like, I was just wanted to see where they were going with it, you know, because it just, I don't know.
I mean, like, for me, like, when I first started playing it, I was not expecting, like the last little game that it shows you, and it was basically Coda's, like, get the fuck away from me
Which
message.
one was that?
It's, like, the one that, like, has all the, it's like you're sort of walking through like these rooms that have like text that are like very directed towards the narrator, and it's basically like, please leave me alone, stop talking about my games to other people without my permission, like stop doing this. It's literally just a message to him being like, fuck off.
Yeah, because there's like a point where like he releases Coda's games that Coda didn't want released because he wanted Coda to come keep making like
he's like, come back to me, like, I mean, and then like the voice actor did a really fantastic job with like the final performance, which is basically like the narrator like, you know, having a breakdown about like Coda like just
rejecting him.
Like completely shoving him out, and like I mean like, you know, he eventually sort of understands that the problem is with him and not with Coda, and just like, you know, I think it's probably one of like the best like voice actor performances I've ever heard. Like, that was really intense, and it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking, really. But I don't know that there's a lot more to say about it. I mean, that's the gist of the experience. I thought it was interesting, and it's cool to see like the medium used that way. Like a lot of it's like sort of it's just a series of like sort of like art experiments through the medium that are very much things that can only be done in the medium. That's kind of cool.
Sounds kind of, I get where you're kind of like, do you feel like some of it was maybe like over pretentious kind of stuff? Because part of it is the narrator ascribing meaning to things in the levels as like messages or like insights into the creator's mind.
One thing,
while at the same time the creator is sending him games that are messages.
That he's just one thing that sort of really stuck with me was like at the end of a lot of the games there's like a lamppost, and so, you know, this guy is like, oh, like the lamppost like stands for this, and this is why I liked it so much. And like in that last level, like one of the like bits of text on the wall is, stop putting lampposts in my games. And I was like, you know, I was just sort of like, you know, where's the like, it's I don't know, it was just sort of interesting. Like, he's like pressuring this guy, and he's like, you know, because like I'm this fan, like this is what I want, like you're gonna do this to your games because of me, and like I don't know, I forget where I was going with that, but yeah, like it's interesting.
Also sounds like the complete opposite of where we're probably going next.
It is.
Yes.
Masterful segue. Masterful. But before we leave it, I want to just slightly expand on probably what are my two biggest problems with it. And one is just like, I feel like, I'm just a grump, so you just have to accept that I'm a grump for this reason. But like, one, I feel like the market is just being overrun with pretentious hipster garbage these days. So that's just like one more on top of the heap as far as I'm concerned. Like back in, like, you know, when these were fresher, like the Dear Esther era, right? Like, I was on board back then. Like, and I bought Dear Esther. I'm like, oh, this is dope. And then I played it, and I'm like, this is trash, right? Like,
I have not played that yet. Now I'm worried.
maybe I just don't get it, or I'm more in the fun camp, right? So that, this emotional message that's being, that's going on in front of me, I just like, it's just going right through me, right? I'm just not seeing it. So that could be the case. And then the second thing is, like, as far as the whole message of the beginner's guide, one, I didn't know the twist ending there, right? And I'm totally down with telling people to fuck off. That's great. But I also, another really big thing in like indie dev culture is to just be like totally self-absorbed and just like, be all angsty about your first world problems as a game developer, right? And he made a whole game about how this poor kid who like really likes his work bothers him, right? Like, get over it. Take your fucking millions from this Stanley Parable and get a life. Right? Like, and I don't know. And it's just like there's really, especially in the last couple of years, been like an anti-fan, anti-customer, anti-gamer sentiment, particularly among indie developers that are just so busy being up their own ass that they can't take a second to like appreciate how much their fans love what they do. And like, I've personally always tried to be the opposite of that, particularly because I hate seeing it. Right? Like, I don't know.
That said, like, I feel like I guess I don't necessarily agree with everything you just said, but also, like, especially because most of, I don't want to say all, but most of the indie developers that I've met and like had like conversations with and been able to like meet face to face and like shake their hand and like know the person, as opposed to just reading some out of context interview or somewhere or something like that, are almost all like humble, chill people. Like, we know that this is not an easy thing to do. Right. It's not an easy business to be in. And most people who have taken it far enough where they've actually made something and released something have been humbled by the process, because nobody's like, almost nobody, and there's a couple, I don't want to say nobody, because there's a couple out there that you could probably pick out, like some famous names.
Yeah, I'm thinking of those guys.
Didn't get that message, but like most of the people who've just been through the process, just from having done it, you can't just show up every day and like code and do the art and leave every day and be like, I'm a fucking rock star. It's not possible. Just by the nature of the work. You're constantly just like, oh man, I should be able to do this better. I should be able to do this, I should do that. You're always kind of like, and if you do it for any amount of time, those people usually tend to be very humble, chill, interesting people, very positive and supportive of each other and like what everybody else is trying to do. A lot less judgmental on like what specific things somebody's trying to do. If they're making a game that's not really for them, they'll still be like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, yeah, I want to see you make that too. I'm not your target audience, but that's great. Like, they're not like, oh, fucking, you're making a shooter, fuck off. Which is, I guess, more like potentially the online interactive type stuff. But I don't know. I guess that's all I just wanted to throw out there is like, I found that my personal interactions with a lot of developers, I've been constantly surprised how, when you have like the stereotype of like the gamer in his parents' basement, like eating Doritos and drinking Mountain Dew and screaming online, like that terrible stereotype that persists, even though like that word's starting to lose meaning, kind of thing. The developers have been so not that stereotype, like that. It's a whole different thing. Like the people who actually do the work are a very different breed than what the image of the consumer is versus like the developers. And I just wanted to kind of, I've constantly just been kind of struck by that. Of like,
it's a totally valid point, and you're right. Most of the developers I've met have been the same way, right? But I feel like the ones you tend to hear about,
the loud ones,
not in the real world, are more along the type.
A whole ethos summed up in a sound. I agree.
I like the points you made, Ryan. I hadn't quite thought of it that way, but you're totally right, I think. But I think we probably can move on to what we're all really here for,
Yeah.
which nobody's
Which
really
Kendall's
talking
doing
about.
right now. She's catching fucking Pokemon in the sound booth.
There are no Pokemon in the sound booth, unfortunately.
So everybody,
Unfortunately.
I actually do like this.
unfortunately, because this podcast is boring.
Snooze.
Yeah, everybody and their mother is playing Pokemon Go.
Literally, my mother.
Yeah, I was thinking of your mom in particular. And it's crazy. It's a thing I've never seen before, and the only thing I can think of that it parallels it is Tamagotchis, but that was probably just because I was like 12 and firmly in the Tamagotchi world.
Yeah, especially since you just said that, and I was just like, wait, that was like a thing.
Yeah, right.
I think I'm like just slightly enough older that like that was never even in my like eye line.
This thing, on the other hand, you can walk down any street in USA right now, and you will see people playing this game actively and wildly in the streets. Like
You might
everywhere.
not see people who aren't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
That's a better picture.
It really feels it's a new level of like pervasiveness in the world, period. You know, like I've just never seen
it's the first augmented reality app I've seen hit like this.
Yeah.
Now, there's been many before it, and without beating the horse of, that Pokemon is a skinned ingress, they were all there before it, but they never caught on like this.
Yeah.
And to see it at this level where it is caught on like this, and to see basically people trying to view a second world through their phone within the environment is kind of like, this has been, the promise of AR since like the 80s of like, people are just going to you'll have callouts on the restaurant, their menu, and you can like walk up the street and see like little things that aren't there.
Right.
But you can see them because you have the device to see them or whatever.
There'll be overlays on all the shit.
Yeah, there'll be a three-dimensional internet on top of everything. And it's, this has been a long time coming, and it's already been here, I guess is my point.
Right.
But this is the one where everybody, including your mother, including the frat dude bros, including people in a retirement home, including people in kindergarten, all of them together at the park running after something that I'm a Pokemon noob, I don't know.
Pokemans.
Yeah, I mean, I was down in Canal last night, and I walked through an area where I think there's, I have no idea, but multiple hundreds of people just sitting in one place, all playing Pokemon, and everyone's like, "Oh, did you get like the Magikarp and like whatever?" And it's just like I was like walking through, and I was just like, "Holy shit!"
This is where
I'm playing too, but like, holy shit!
It hit me how big it really was when by my house there's like a place that it's actually a cemetery, and it turns out to be a Pokemon hotspot just through the way Ingress and all of that got set up. This cemetery is one of the best places in the city. You can go to just do Pokemon, whatever you do in this fucking app. And that's the other thing. I haven't really played it either, but my girlfriend loves it. And she's Canadian, which it's technically not out in Canada, but at the time, like there's ways around that now, but like the first weekend it had come out, nobody really knew about it. So my weekend consisted of her wanting to go places and us going places and her catching Pokemon for like half of our weekend was that. So we went. She sees that.
God damn this game.
I was very open about how much I did not care about it.
But it got you outside.
Well, actually, I mean, I did like that, and that's a great thing about this book. So we were out in this cemetery by my house, and it's a really big place and historic, and it's really actually pretty beautiful. And we're walking down a path, and she's looking at her phone, and she's like, okay, there's some lures out. So that means somebody is just sitting there with a lure, and that helps you attract Pokemon. So they're sitting there, and they're just kind of stationary, and they're getting an increased spawn rate or something. So, like, we kind of walk around, and through the map, because it's 1-to-1 with, like, Google Maps, basically, she sees where there's two guys sitting in the grass smoking cigs on their phones. And she's like, that's got to be them. And I was like, all right, yeah. And then I was like, well, let's go this way. And she's like, I want to go talk to them. And I was like, all right. So
you're being replaced.
Yeah.
Whatever. If that's what it's over, you can have at it. No, I got other things I can do. So she goes and she sits down with them, and I I just went and found a bench by the pond. And I mean, because there's no reason for me to stand there while they talked about Pokemon. So I'm sitting there and they're over there kind of talking about whatever. And then I see another couple like across the pond and they're looking at their phones and then they're looking at them and my girlfriend and this group of other guys. And then they look at their phones again and they look back and then they make their way over. And so now there's like 5 people. Then a guy rides by on his bike, this like lanky dude that looks like he could be in Pokemon. He was wearing like blue shorts, a yellow shirt, and he was like skinny, and he like had a hat, and he was on his bike. It was like he just fucking came out of the game, and he like rode up, and he starts talking to him. Literally,
what you don't know is the game spawned that.
Yes.
Maybe, and if that happened, maybe I understand now what's so good about this game. That would make sense, but. Over the next 5 minutes, a group of 10 people assembled, at least, that didn't know each other and were catching Pokemon together and talking and comparing notes and talking about stuff. And that's when I was like, okay, this is like a new thing. Like, this is a phenomenon now. Like, I've never seen anything like this.
I have to know, were you into Pokemon as a kid?
Yeah, I was. I played all of like Red when I was a kid on my Game Boy.
So do you also find it just very strange that people like you and I just refuse to be cool? Like, finally Pokemon is red and all of a sudden we don't want to play it anymore.
I know, we only want to play it when we get beat up for it.
Yeah.
Talk about some pretentious hipster bullshit.
No, I know.
It's too popular. I was into Pokemon before it was cool.
No, believe me. I've had that thought. I don't want to be that. And so I really question myself about that.
But that's a very valid feeling. It's a feeling a lot of people have. And you and I were talking about this, and that's why I really wanted you to come talk about it on the podcast. Because, like, I've felt that way before, and I will continue to feel that way about things in my life. And you and I really got into, like, what the fuck is this thing, though? Because at the same time, it's kind of like, why? Like, why do we feel that way, right? But
yes, because I finally hit a point in my life years ago where I'm like, oh, I actually like people and I want to be social, right?
Yeah.
But maybe that dormant part of me that just refuses to embrace that lifestyle, right? Just something about seeing everybody doing something and having a good time where I'm just like, I want no part of that.
It's sort of like a thing.
I don't like fun.
The thing that we were persecuted for is now a badge of like coolness,
right.
And it feels really unfair. I mean, in persecuted, it's a huge overstatement, but like when we were playing Pokemon, it wasn't cool to play video games, let alone fucking Pokemon, which is like always been perceived as like a kid's game. Maybe it is, I don't know. But
I mean, it's marketed as a kid's game, but
it kind of is, and it's really simple. But
until you get into like the pro like tournament circuit, right?
Yeah.
Like the meta game and all the crazy shit.
There's always that level,
right?
Even on like fucking Scooby Doo's Blue's Adventures got that.
I wonder how those people feel about this. Like the people who've been like professional Pokemon players, like what's their take? Are they happy they're getting attention, or are they just like fucking ultra noobs?
Probably the latter.
This level of noobness.
Never seen noobs this noob before.
Never noob this hard.
Yeah, so that's like a very real angle to this whole thing. Like there's a lot to digest here. Like there's a lot going on with this whole thing, and that's one of them is like, wait, like everybody loves Pokemon now, like everybody. And I mean I kind of already knew that, I guess, but it's just been made very real in the past week that
the fact
now,
it's not like a game came out and it's super popular. It happens all the time. New game comes out, it's a hit, millions of people playing it. Game Award gets a Kate Upton commercial on Super Bowl. They've got people playing 3 hours a day, millions of them, right? People aren't talking about it like this.
Yeah.
Because people aren't running into each other at the cemetery playing Game of War, being like, "Hey, you play Game of War too?" Like, I'm here to play that too.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, "This is a different thing. Like, this is a new thing."
Just the huge social side to it is like
Right. That's when you see people out in the street with their phone up and you walk around. I think one of you guys said it earlier today. It's like you just assume like they're playing Pokemon. Like you don't even think that they're checking an email or whatever.
It's like, no, you're playing Pokemon.
I
know what you're doing.
Yeah. Like, there's not a Bulbasaur over there, dude. It's like, I'm just checking Slack.
I was at Taste of Buffalo, and like when I was in line getting tickets, I was like talking to my friend. I was like, I wonder how many people here are playing Pokemon. The girl in front of me turned around. She's like, "Oh, the servers are down right now." It's just like, and there's my answer.
Well, nobody at that time.
Well, yeah.
The answer
there were a lot of people frustrated, going like.
But the answer was given literally by the person right next to you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So just by playing the numbers game, that means everybody.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. So I just finished college for people listening. And in my last semester, I was taking this globalization class for sociology, and like my final paper that I did on Pokemon. And I was like talking about like the social phenomena and like, et cetera, and like its impact on the US and like all that sort of stuff. And, my professor was like, "Oh, like, I don't know if like this is a great topic. Like, I mean, it was kind of like a thing. And now I just want to be like, screw.
Yeah, right.
Are you also just like, damn it, why didn't this come out while I was writing my dissertation?
I have had that thought so many times.
This is my thesis.
I was just like, can I even write this paper? But
that's very unfortunate.
Oh well. But no, literally, I'm just like, I very sincerely hope that she has had the thought at one point, like, oh, I see why she wrote the paper now.
I just like how you turn this global phenomenon into like, I told you so. Its impact has no bounds. But I do find it really interesting just how people are finding each other in the street. We talked about it in the space earlier today. AR has just been around for so long. The promise was always there. It was going to happen at some point, and I never expected Pokemon to be like the tipping point. And I don't think this to be like, all right, now it's over. Singularity's coming. It's going to be AR on everything. Yeah. Like, I don't think that. Like, this is just the toe dipped into the water.
People are now comfortable with it.
But people are beyond that. People are now aware of it. Because there's still a lot of people that didn't even know this was a thing that you could do. Even though there was been some of us that have been doing it for 10 or 15 years.
I think you mentioned at the yearly meeting the other day, like a lot of people like have no idea what augmented reality like actually means and virtual reality, like what they really are, and like now they have a much better idea because they can. Right.
So before we were talking about augmented reality, people was like, "What are you talking about?" And now you can just be like, like Pokemon Go, and be like, "Oh,
I play that. I have like 500 Pokemon."
Yeah, I'd actually, I bet most people who have found out about this game didn't even know you could do something like that.
Right. Yeah. That's just, I think it's an awareness thing. Yeah. And like now people know that this is on the table. And like we were talking about like levels of adoption, a year from now, it's not going to be like, oh, this is the thing you can do. It's like, yeah, we know that, stupid. We've been doing that forever. What are you talking about? But like, it's just part of the culture now.
What's cool now too, though, is this kind of begs for the next step, right? Because not everybody's going to want to be holding their phones up for this shit now. They're going to be more, now Google Glass makes sense now, right? Like now shit like that.
Well, not in its incarnation that it had.
Google,
like,
whatever.
Those type of...
I'm saying
something like that, yeah.
It makes sense for people now see how this can work into their lives. Like, things like this up until this point have preceded demand. I mean, people just didn't know about it. But, or if they did, they didn't know how it could be valuable. But now the market's primed, right? Like now we can actually, there's a reason for people to start using these cool new devices that I want to use and not be the only guy using in a crowd of like, oh, look at my fucking like VR special like glasses, like just look like the one dumbass.
See, now that's the guy I want to be. That's the shit
like, yes.
I'm into.
The hipster continues.
You can't escape it.
Oh god,
it's in you.
And I was gonna say my theory as to why maybe old school nerds or hardcore gamers or game developers maybe aren't so into it as the rest of the general population is because, let's face it, it's not a very good game, right?
And that is a really good point.
Especially if you're a designer. I mean, you can see the Skinner box just 100% transparently.
It's clear as day. And,
I agree, but also disagree.
I think Pokemon is okay because make your argument. I feel like the argument with that is how is this not a good game? What does it lack?
Crashes, lacks
that's
ability
true. Yeah,
to play the game.
With that.
Like game breaking bugs where people lose the stuff that they fight so hard and drive across the county to go get. That's really the biggest thing. If you make a game that's broken, it's a bad game.
From a game design standpoint, is it a bad game?
If it breaks all the time, yeah, it makes it unplayable.
What I'm talking about.
But I mean,
no, what
if,
happens in the game,
yeah. Because you're 100% right about that, but let's get away from that and let's talk. Because I've heard the argument made that from a game design perspective, say it worked perfectly, is it a good game?
Okay, so you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I still don't think it is. Even if it worked, even if the servers always stayed up, people didn't lose their progress, people didn't have it crash their screen, people didn't have it chew their battery up so their phone died, people didn't have it drop out middle thing. People didn't have to sign in every time they went to a different app. If all of these horrendous game-breaking bugs that would destroy your company if you didn't have a Nintendo brand attached to you didn't exist in that world that we're not in, is the game? If it was, whatever.
Well, it's frustrating when somebody puts out garbage like that, and you're making good stuff, right?
But also because, like I said, this is just raising awareness, right? And so now these people are all becoming aware of AR, and they think it breaks.
And there's also that association is being made.
So they're making a bad association. So one of the things that's kind of key when you're trying to get somebody into new tech or whatever, if you're trying to show somebody VR, you don't show them something that's running at 10 frames a second and it's sidestepping for them and doing all the things to make them sick for no reason, right? Because they walk away being like, that's garbage.
So what about
anyway,
the game itself?
So as I understand it, the game is not the game. I can't understand this. This just drives me crazy just from a fundamental design in business standpoint. The game is not the game that everybody's played for all these years. When you guys played Pokemon, you played a game where you captured these little critters and you trained them up and you battled them against other critters with turn-based combat with moves and items and special powers and all this kind of stuff, right? They had HP, they did all these kind of crazy things, correct?
Yeah.
You can't do that in this game.
True.
You just tap the screen over and over again. Why this perfectly honed thing that everybody really liked? Why take that all away and just make it so somebody's just tapping the screen? I know more than one person who uninstalled the app when they found out what combat was like.
Yeah, but for every one of those, I would imagine, I agree it's a bad game, but I also think it has to be a bad game, because if it was a good game, I don't think nearly as many people would be playing it, right? It has to be shallow in order for it to be a worldwide phenomenon.
That's so cynical, but I 100% agree.
I don't necessarily agree in the sense that it doesn't have to be as deep as a super complex roguelike or something like that. You could still do, fight or run and pick your attacks, or having one way to heal or something, and to still have the turn-based combat that was the hallmark of the series. You could still do that, and it would still be more of a game than just tapping the screen, which, as far as I understand, and I'm waiting for somebody to dispute this, that's all you can do with all these things that you're running around all over town collecting. All you can do is you collect it, and now it's on the screen, and now what? Well, now I can tap it really fast.
And there doesn't seem to be any feedback as to whether you're affecting the battle or
right.
It's just you
so
just
why
tap
can't
the shit out of it.
Why can't the thing just auto attack?
Yeah,
what are you doing? You're literally doing the Skinner box chicken peck the button. You're not affecting the can we make this conveyor belt work without the chicken pecking the button? Yeah. Well, then we get rid of the chicken.
I'm all for getting rid of the tapping, but let me ask you this. It's summer now, right? So let's say there's a gym down the street in front of a bowling alley, which is the case at my old apartment. I should say was, or is, whatever.
What's the address?
You want to tell us that again? Guys, party at Rand's house?
Yeah. Do you want to go and stand in front, let's say it's the weekend, of and stand in an empty parking lot when it's 85 degrees out, just standing there like planning out your attack and what you're going to do next, and should I switch this Pokemon out for this Pokemon, or do you want to go tap 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 and then go back in your air conditioning, right? Like that's to me why it was designed the way it was designed, is because gyms are just everywhere, and more often than not you're probably going to be uncomfortable when you're battling at a gym.
I mean, I kind of get that, but it also made it. Again, I can't defend it from a gameplay standpoint. Like, I just, I get it from a practicality of like the game is really about taking over the gyms, but what happens when you take over the gyms? You just made this one red instead of blue, and now the next time a blue guy drives by, he stops and he goes tap 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 tap, and it's blue now. So what's
that motherfucker?
Like what? Right, but I mean, like, right, but that's what the people are supposed to be like. Oh damn, I got to go take my gym back or whatever. But well,
I just have a question for you.
I feel you. I mean, I definitely feel you.
So when you're playing other games, are you just tapping buttons?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Especially in games that take very little input but a lot of thought. Like chess, for example. You're not tapping buttons, but you're playing a game, and there's a very deep game there.
Yeah, but I'm mostly joking with you here.
No,
like,
I know.
There's
I give
not
you a serious
lot you
answer.
can do
so.
on like a phone besides tap the screen. So that's
That
also limited.
said, the phone screen can accommodate like 2 buttons or 3 buttons that are just like in the corners of the screen, and you can just be like attack, item, run, or whatever, and just pick which one it is, and at least have some type of interaction that isn't just what is essentially be like, why can't I just hold my thumb on the screen? Why can't it just do it for me? At that point, if this is supposed to be so easy, why can't it just be like, all right, I walked within the zone, I walked within the radius of the gym. My phone's in my pocket. Should be taking over the gym right now for me.
Also, that would not be nearly as fun.
Why though? That's kind of where the decision. That's kind of where this conversation comes from. It's like, I get it. They came up with a very simple interaction to make you feel like you're doing something, but you aren't. But that still makes it more interesting. But how? Like, it's kind of like it's more of a magic trick than it is a good design.
I disagree with you on the fact that this is like somehow that this game has failed, because
I don't think clearly it hasn't failed.
Well, but in your opinion, it has. Yeah.
No, I think it's social implication, and like your graveyard story, or the story like when I was at the bar the other day, or the gentleman we know who writes for Destructoid, he wrote his article about how they were driving around town and they dropped a lure outside a college campus and watched 30 college kids come out of their dorms.
Run outside,
come out of their dorms, and they got out and talked to them. It's like you're basically, and people are dropping lures down dark alleys and robbing people.
Yeah.
Like is Hillary Clinton's going to drop lures at a Pokestop and give a stump speech?
Really?
Well, yeah, really.
Yeah.
Like, this is like culturally an event that is, you can't deny that. And I find the whole thing very interesting. And I think
Can I have a picture of your face right now, Greg?
the use of the map and the AR elements are great, but I think it's fundamentally shallow and completely uninteresting to me from a game point, because once you catch all these things by doing this fun cultural experiment, you can't do anything with them.
Okay, but like my opinion on it is Pokemon is, from a gameplay standpoint, has not been, it's about that complex in the combat. The combat is borderline nothing in its incarnation on these other platforms. You attack or you run away. Like, you're a step above tapping the guy to death. Like, it's really not that much more. You're not missing.
But it's a step above, and it's still a choice.
A minor, like a small progression. Like it's
the ship
you
of
don't even
Theseus.
have
How many
to think through these
changes?
fights.
How many changes does it take before it's a new system?
Well, it's just my what I'm saying is I just don't think it justifies your throw your hands up in the air, fucking, oh, why did they do it this way kind of stuff. Because it's the gist of the combat that already exists. You know?
Well, I guess my throw it up in the air thing is just like, they have this brand, they have this game. They, like you said, is not that difficult to understand,
right,
to begin with.
Yeah.
That does have at least some type of depth and interactivity to it, beyond just being a chicken pecking a red button for a pellet.
Right.
That exists, and, oh, by the way, it's a turn-based game that is the easiest way to do multiplayer possible. You don't even need to simulate anything. You can just take an input and then have the server update each other. Like, it's literally the easiest way to do it. You don't have to show anybody. You don't have to show attacks happening real time on each other's phones. Yeah. You can just have it. So I hit the button, and even if it takes 5 seconds for you to get the update or whatever, like, it's still the update and it's valid or whatever. And it's the easiest way to do it. Not to say the multiplayer is ever easy, but of the forms of it, that's the easiest one to do.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have this history, they have this baseline, they have this brand, they have all these things, they have a path to adding that to the game that's one step above just pecking the thing and potentially engaging people and having a game where people can build a metagame on top of it eventually. And that they didn't do that from a business sense, I'm confused by, because what I'm still worried about is that once the novelty of catching these little buggers outside wears off, there's going to be a mass exodus of people in the game when they realize, I don't care about tapping the screen over and over again, that it would keep those people playing if there was combat with decision where you could get good at it. You can't be better at tapping the screen than somebody else. Where you could get good at the game by learning its intricacies, by finding it, like playing the metagame, by doing all those things, that's going to give you long-term engagement. Whereas this Skinner box, tap the screen stuff, the second people get tired of that, and the second people they get over the I caught a Pokemon on my desk chair, look at me, and post that on Twitter. Once that's happened for the 10 millionth time, and people said stop killing my Facebook feed with Pokemon, I don't care anymore. Once that happens, that novelty's gone. 90% of these users are gone.
But nobody plays Pokemon for the combat. Nobody does. Because
that is not true.
There's nothing there. There's nothing there.
If you were to go after this podcast and just like look into the competitive Pokemon community, I think your mind would be blown by how deep it is, how involved people are. Because there are stats on Pokemon that the game doesn't even display. Like it gets real deep. There's these EV things and IVs, and like the game doesn't actually display them right. And it's like if you're leveling up a Pokemon, you actually want to fight specific other types of Pokemon to get the best possible stats when you level up. And it's like there's all this depth underneath the hood that the game itself doesn't even bother making.
You don't need to know any of that shit.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Because you're a 12-year-old kid and you're like, you just finished watching the cartoon and you want to go to your friend's house and beat a gym. So they made the game for those kids, but also, the basement freaks who want to play this thing competitively, there's definitely enough there.
But 90% of the people before this app are playing Pokemon to go catch Pokemon and to go explore. True. And that's all this app is, and that's all it needs to be. I mean, that's what the game is to most people. So I think it's fair. Like, I think it's a proper app that serves the purpose of Pokemon as it's consumed by most people. I think it does that perfectly. Because I think, yes, all those things are there, but the ratio of people engaging at that depth is gotta be,
I agree,
like single percentages compared to the people who are just like, look, I caught a fucking bird thing, or I'm like over by the lake and now I'm gonna go to this town. And like that's what they like to do.
I totally agree. I guess I just wanted to point out that there actually is quite a bit of depth.
It's a good point
there if you're willing to look.
And also, you just kind of like mentioned like you take it and you fight against these other specific Pokemon to get certain stats, and you evolve the Pokemon through gaining experience and like doing all this kind of crap and getting the right junk to what in this game it's candy by catching duplicates and they're like in-app purchases of like, I want to evolve this thing, so I'm going to get this kid to pay $5 for candies.
Someday I will have 400 Magikarp candy and I will evolve that thing.
Is that how much it takes?
Just for that one.
Christ.
Right, so you get all this. So in-app
it's usually like 25 or 50 for the Magikarp. It's fucking 400.
To get ahead to the benefit of taps faster.
Yeah. I mean, look.
Now you're getting into like the classic just argument of like any game, right? Like, what's it all for?
No, I mean, like if you level up characters and you build them all up, but part of it is the journey, and the other part of it is what is it for. And you want to get in the classic raid joke of like, I need gear to raid, blah blah blah. But part of the journey in the other one was like fighting, like using it against other things and finding its strengths, finding its weaknesses, and like evolving it up. And then, as far as I understand it, all these different Pokemon everybody's catching all over the place, they all play the fucking same. right? It's
Yeah,
all the same
like-
shit.
I have not done gym battles.
So the point of catching
you don't even have to do it
so the point of catching all these different things and like finding the difference, like
because people
those
like
don't
to
even
collect
exist. Like,
things.
that
That's
doesn't
it.
even exist.
Yeah.
That's why I'm playing the game. Like,
Yeah,
I
people
don't
just
really
wanna
care about the
collect
gym. I just have a bunch of Pokemon.
The game is collecting. The game is not combat. The game is collecting and exploration. That's what Pokemon is.
And like actually, so I'm going back to this paper that I wrote. Like literally, like the whatever his name is, the creator wanted to make a game that sort of symbolized like how he would go out and like catch bugs in his backyard. You know, you're not going to sit there and make the bugs fight unless you're really strange. But like, okay, well, I don't want to talk to you, and I'm just kidding. No, but I mean, like, the point is really going and collecting and seeing what's out there and having fun doing that. And yeah, I mean, they put the combat in because it's like, well, people like to do this, and like that makes it more like a game.
Well, because they
but-
needed a reason for all the
Yeah.
stuff that you're
Right,
getting
exactly.
and doing, and adding a depth of a system that would actually engage you into thinking about it.
Yeah, but like,
Where-
but really, the main point is collect.
Well, the combat really ultimately just feeds into the social aspect of it, right? It's this
Yeah.
giant game of capture the flag, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And that the combat is just there to facilitate the capture the flag game.
Yeah,
A
it's
giant
that's-
game of fuck you, my team's better for no
Yeah.
reason at all.
Yeah, that's Ingress. Like that's what it. Yeah, that's what the whole point was. Is like you capture certain areas of the map, you try to take over zones, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, I guess what I'm kind of almost hearing is that like, if you do some mental gymnastics, you can ascribe the game design ethos of Ingress to Pokemon, and it still ties.
So in summary, Pokemon, fun if you're not a game dev.
Yeah, I mean, I think my ultimate conclusion would be it's definitely the next Farmville, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in terms of its simplicity and Skinnerbox-edness and the fact that it's just clearly a total cash grab, but is Farmville the worst thing in the world? If a game entertains millions, maybe even billions for Pokemon Go, who knows? You know, for X number of months or years, like at the end of the day, whatever, right? It's not our thing, I guess, but it's not a crime.
For all the conversation we're having in here, there's 4 people in the room, 3 of them don't play it.
Yeah. Or even all you should just
So as much as people want to say for or against it, they're not playing it.
Yeah.
So that says a lot right there. And then beyond that, I think the cultural aspect is undeniable and has to be recognized. And
It's amazing.
I think the stories that come out of it, what you see in the streets and how people interact with each other, like it's an amazing achievement just to pull that off and to get people to install this thing and to interact in that way.
Mhm. And that's one of the best things I think about like games too, and just playing games. Like you find someone who's played the same game and you talk about it with them, and like I mean that's why we're doing this podcast pretty much. Like,
Right. But
you know,
I guess,
great.
and again, to bring it back to one of the points I made earlier, is just because I don't like what they did with this game doesn't mean I think the people who play it are bad people. Like, I don't care. You have fun. You enjoy the game. You're having fun playing it. That's awesome. That's great. Like, I really, we were sitting at the bar the other night, I have people
I'm
catch a
gonna
Pokemon.
remind you of
It's
this
fun.
when you give me shit for catching Pokemon earlier.
Just because I don't think you're a bad person doesn't mean I can't make fun of you. That's just
I
life.
get it. Yes.
But as somebody who tries to be a proponent of like new tech and like new things like this, one of my concerns is kind of the bad taste in the mouth that a bad experience with a new technology can leave. And I think the awareness for augmented reality that Pokemon Go has created is enormous and amazing and awesome for people who are trying to work in this kind of space. My worry is that when people find out that there's nothing else behind it and they get over the novelty of catching, a Pikachu on their desk at work, they're going to be like, oh yeah, that's a fucking science experiment. That's a toy.
And I think that
nobody
happens
cares.
a lot with like sort of phenomena like this, like things that get really big really fast like this. It's going to hit a point where that does wear off and people are just going to...
The backlash already started.
Yeah, it's
the backlash already started.
Yeah,
Backlash already started. People keep posting pictures of catching Pokemon online and people are already sick of it.
Yeah.
So fuck you.
Enough, we get it.
Yeah.
That is the ultimate like destination of really any game, though, right?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Or like
at
only
some point, it's
any
going to
game-
be
I mean,
some live in our hearts forever, I guess. But
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, it's everything is headed toward death. Right? Just to lighten the mood.
Way
here.
to keep it light. But,
Some things just get there a little faster than others.
well, that's the thing. I mean, you can't have a meteoric rise like that without a backlash like this anymore.
Sure.
Information travels too fast that, you know, after one day, the people who knew what the word ingress was versus the day before that was millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
And
I didn't know what it was before this.
I had no idea. Yeah.
2 weeks from now, the number of people who are posting their Pokemon they caught on Twitter is going to be down millions of people
Mm-hmm.
because nobody's going to care anymore.
Yeah.
And that is kind of like my concern about the whole thing, is that if you're going to do something that brings this amount of awareness to this new technology and it's shallow and it's broken and the servers crap out and you lose your progress and somebody drives across town and they drop a lure, they spend $5 to drop a lure and they catch something and the server crashes when they caught it and then wipes out their entire history of the game, which is happening to people all over the place.
Yep.
That makes people say, oh, okay, AR is a thing. I get it exists. It's fucking broken. It's not ready yet. Nobody should be using it. It needs another 5 years. And you just set the clock back.
Yeah.
Now, do I think it's that dire? No. I'm just making that point because when you introduce somebody to something new and you do it badly, you color their perception of it.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to say they did it badly, though. How could you possibly support this? Who could have this is an unprecedented level of popularity. There's no way you can support it because it's never existed.
Well, you mean support it with the server farms and whatnot? I mean, that's not necessarily true. I mean, Game of War and Candy Crush have more daily players by a huge margin than this game. Look at the daily average time spent playing. Pokemon Go is still not number one.
I don't know about all that, but I do know that I don't know anybody that plays those games, and I do know everybody in my life plays Pokemon.
Especially at launch, right? I mean, they launched
yeah.
it, and I would think that they just didn't think it was going to blow up like it did. Right?
First
They're
of all,
we'll
you
get-
never know. Second of all, how could you anticipate the kind of numbers they got when nothing's ever pulled numbers like that?
Also, nothing has ever successfully launched ever in the history.
No,
of
and
technology.
right,
Not
well,
for like
and that's the other-
multiplayer stuff like that.
And that's why I mean, like, that's why it's hard to say they handled it poorly, because first, it just goes like this, right? Like, this is just what it is.
Yep.
And two, on top of this just being the game, it's compounded by just unpredictable, just runaway popularity.
Right.
And if they scaled to support it, in 2 weeks, nobody's playing the game, and then they have all this infrastructure. So, like, how do you do it, right? Like, how do you balance that? That's a tough thing to do. But it is unfortunate that it is hopefully not going to leave too much of a tarnish on people's perception of, like, what AR is and could be. On the other hand, they didn't know about it all before, so...
Yeah. I mean, pluses and minuses.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. And only time will tell kind of like where it goes from there.
And I think there's a definite possibility too. I mean, like, even though the game is buggy as hell and frustrating and made me want to throw things the other day, like, people are still going to remember, like, having fun and, like, going out in that experience. And I think, you know, that may be able to overshadow everybody's, like, annoyance with the bugs, and so the next time somebody is like an AR thing, they're like, oh, I remember that was really fun, and they might go back. So I don't know. I mean, it's easy to be really pessimistic about it, but, like, I kind of don't think it's going to happen that way.
I mean, for all I'm kind of ripping apart some of the things that they did, I'm not all doom and gloom. Like, I really do think it's an awesome thing that happened.
Yeah, no,
And
definitely.
it's a very cool social experiment, if nothing else. Like, that's the real thing that I'm, like, super interested in is
Right.
Yeah.
the social interactivity that it brought to the table of people finding each other in the real world. Again, I kind of throw this out, I've said it 10 times, but it's like the promise of AR, of, like, the things where it's like these other people are experiencing something that other people can't see that aren't in it. But now there's so many people doing it that you can't not walk around and recognize it. Like, if you know what Pokemon Go is and you're walking down the street and you see somebody looking at their phone and they kind of beeline down like a alley, you're like, all right, let's chase
Yeah,
something.
I mean, well, like what I told you before we even started the podcast, like when I'm driving around with Mom, I, like, point out people, I'm like, so they're playing and they're playing and they're playing. Like, you can tell, absolutely. And I mean, like, I've been walking around and you're looking at the little footprints that says like how near or far like a thing is, and I've absolutely done like a instant 180 on the street, and somebody has been like, I know what you're doing.
Yeah. Ain't nothing but Pidgeys over there. Don't go.
Yeah.
Can we all agree to never talk about Pokemon Go again?
I think we plumbed the depths.
Yeah.
I'm just happy we didn't talk about Overwatch.
I am so tired of hearing about this shit, though. Like, we're talking
We had
about
to get it out of our system.
We
So
had
now
to. I
onto
mean-
Overwatch.
No.
So they're adding a new character.
Oh, that reminds me. Oh, speaking of Overwatch, I played Dark
Can I
Souls.
be there?
What? What?
Well, it couldn't be a podcast if we didn't say
Oh, okay.
2 words.
Those two. Yeah.
But yeah, I actually played some more Darkest Dungeon, but I feel like I'm game talked out. We can get into it later.
Yeah, we should probably wrap
About an
it.
hour.
Yeah, it's been an hour, so that was a good cast.
All right, unless you guys want to talk about Dark Dungeon now.
Which is like, I don't want to.
I'm down. You guys.
I'm starting with shit. Talk about Darkest Dungeon.
All right,
Go.
do it.
All right, we'll do this fast. We'll do
Yeah.
a lightning round on
All
Darkest Dungeon. Game's badass.
All right.
It doesn't.
Okay.
Good chat.
talk, let's
GG.
go.
So I kind of like to bring it up real quick in the contrast to what we just discussed on Pokemon Go about like how simplistic the combat is and how you're like, well, you press attack or run and you only have a couple options. So like that's simple still, right? I think Darkest Dungeon is like a perfect counter to like any type of talk of that.
It's about as far away from that as you can get.
While every character in the game only has 4 moves ever
True.
at any given time.
Yeah.
There's only 4 things you can do at any given moment in the game with any character. So it at its face, if you want to just be like, yeah, it's just hitting this button or this button, it's like, well, there's that. But if you played the game, you know that, yeah, that's not what's going on at all.
There's a whole lot of brain going on behind that.
Yeah, totally. You know, the thing that continually impresses me about the game, and for anybody who doesn't know how the game works, it's basically you've got a town, you're basically recruiting heroes that kind of come to the town
For anyone who
for
doesn't
you.
know how the game works,
Yeah.
listen to our previous podcast,
Yeah.
please.
And you basically send 4 heroes into like a randomly generated dungeon type area. But the whole like running through 3D mazes and all that stuff is not, it's gone. And all the random encounter stuff, like it's there, but it's all broken down into like D-Skreet chunks. So it's like you go from this room to this room, and then you'll find 2 things in between it.
So you
And
said
it-
discreet again?
D-Skreet?
Okay, you said it
I noticed
discreet
it
last
too.
time.
It's the dopest way I've ever heard that
Yeah.
word said. You were like, D-Skreet.
Yo, I'm D-Skreet.
Oh my god.
My math's always D-Skreet.
And there's our soundbite.
So it's really fundamentally a dungeon crawler roguelike that has been boiled down to its essence, that has permadeath and like perma punishment for screwing up, while allowing you to maintain some modicum of progress like while you play the game. So you can get characters that die and they're dead forever, and you lose whatever they were carrying and all their experience. But
But you're driving a car fueled by bodies. Like, that's the game. Like, it runs.
it's a good
on-
way to put it.
Yeah.
but you know, you're commanding an army. Some soldiers die in your army, right? Like you need to keep your eye on the prize and the bigger picture.
Yes.
You need to kind of grow the town and build the town up and make sure that the people are safe and whatnot. And so to that end, this game kind of always, like, when you lose characters here and there, you have to abandon quests here and there. Like I've had to punch out a couple of times where I thought I was doing really well. And one specific example, and I just want to throw this out there as an example of how this game just doesn't give a fuck about you and your feelings. Because I was playing like a champion level dungeon, which is like the highest level difficulty.
You're so far
for
ahead of me
darkness.
now.
And the game doesn't play. Like it's just, it'll jump you, and if you're not ready, you're done. And so I came into a room, and there's 4 spiders pop out, and they're like little spiders. The enemies you can usually kill in 1 hit. I'm like, all right, whatever. I had just gotten through like 3 combats with like way crazier enemies. Like, all right, whatever. But they surprised me, and they shifted my group around. So my healer was like up front. That's bad. First move of the enemy is to mark her and debuff her like protection levels or whatever. So now she's got a mark on her, which makes that any damage she takes is like multiplied. And so normally what happens in games like this is like your enemies, they attack you, and they kind of attack you randomly, right? They hit your squad all over. They attack whoever's closest to them or whatever. And this game was just like, mark her, every enemy then proceeded to attack her just Every single one. Not a single attack on anybody else in my crew. Just all focused on tearing her down and killing her. And I'm like, damn. And I'm moving her back in the ranks. I'm getting people up. I'm blocking attacks. I'm trying to heal her up. She's at death's door, which basically means one more hit and she's dead.
Yeah.
And I'm getting her back off of death's door. Next round comes around. It's round based. All 4 spiders on her. Attack. I'm like, oh shit. Like, nothing on anybody else? This game's just like, no, we got a target. This bitch is dying. And I'm like, fuck. And so I basically warded off the attack, thankfully. I had Houndmaster to hold down the fort, do some guard dog action. and he saved her life to the point where I was basically, I ran, and then I had to punch out and abandon the quest because I didn't want to lose. She was like one of my top level healers. I didn't want to lose her. And if she took one more hit, dead forever, and that's it.
Yeah.
GG, you're going to the cemetery, no more.
Cemetery.
Cemetery.
The
D-Skreet cemetery.
Cemetery.
And so I had to punch out. And when you punch out, basically, you lose all the loot that you had gathered on the quest. All of your characters get stressed the fuck out. Like, they're all freaking out. They all come back into town with, like, diseases and maladies and, like, mental issues. And you got to send them to, like, the sanitarium to get rid of they get the runs and, like, the syphilis and black plague and shit. Yeah. Or, like, send them to, like, the bar to make them go drink so they can calm the fuck down and stop being a selfish asshole. So anyway, the game doesn't care. It'll focus you down and just wreck your day with, like, cheap, like, little ass enemies, but it's never cheap. Like, they caught me, wasn't ready to deal with my healer getting pushed to the front rank and marked. And the game was just like, got you, bitch. Focus this, like, nothing. No, it's all on her now.
Yeah.
And I did what I could to get her out, and then I had to punch out. I couldn't continue the quest.
I don't think I've ever seen the game focus a guy like that.
I've never seen it either. And I was like, and after 2 rounds of it, I was like, really? And, like, another spider attacks. I'm like, god damn it. And if I didn't have the ability to do guard dog, which basically, the character has a dog, I make the dog protect the woman, and any attack that comes to the woman, the dog jumps in front of it, basically. And the dog basically saved her from death, and we got the fuck out. And I was just like, god damn it, little spiders. And I was doing so well, and I had spent, like, all my gold of preparing for this mission. No. So now I got, like, nothing. And I'm like, shit. Yeah. And it costs a ton of money to get these people to go to the bar and, like, go to meditate and get good again. Like, they get all mentally process. Fucked up. Yeah. It's a whole thing. If you got any,
they go into, like, a program, basically, where they gotta, like,
you gotta sit them out for a couple weeks. They get to go gamble and play blackjack and drink beers.
They have, like, meetings and
or you send them to, like, the church and they go flagellate themselves because they're fucking bad people.
Yeah.
And it's a whole thing that you have to do, and it costs all types of money, which I no longer have. So I'm like, shit, like, this game totally caught me like that. So then this happens, and I hadn't seen this up to this point in the game. Then the game does town events too. So, like, you have your town. You go on a mission, you come back. Every mission's a week. You come back. Sometimes there's town events. A lot of them are good. Some of them are like, all right, half the people got fucking syphilis last week. And it's like, shit.
My kind of town.
Or, like, sometimes you come back to the town and it's like, you know, the bar is being remodeled, so the tavern owner, so nobody can go drinking, but the tavern owner has now made, like, gambling in the brothel free for use, and she can send your whole crew to the brothel and they can all get relaxed, and that's good. And so it does, like, little events like this, and they're all kind of random. And I come back and it's like, the brigands are invading the town, and I'm like, what is this about? I was like, okay, what does that mean? And it's like, all right, well, this is a darkest dungeon level mission, which is like a level 6, like, hardest level mission in the game, like, on the town. And so you have 2 options. Basically, you can ignore it and just go on a different mission, or you can try to fight them back, which basically means you have to accept this level 6 mission with nobody in my squad is capable of handling a level 6 mission and surviving pretty much at this point. So I'm like, fuck it, well, I guess I'm going to ignore it. And they're like, well, if you ignore the bandits, they're going to fuck your town up. I'm like, okay. And the town's, like, the real progress, like building up your bar, building up your blacksmith, your guild for, like, training your character's skills. Like, that's as your characters die, your town getting better allows you to recover and, like, build up better characters faster, you know? So I'm like, well, fuck, I can't do this mission. I got to ignore it. So I go on this mission, I come back, and they basically destroyed my fucking guild. They destroyed, like, part of my church. It's like all this progress that I'd made that took multiple missions to build this progress. They're just, like, gone. And, like, not start over, but, like, something that cost a lot of artifacts to like get like a level 4 guild like shit.
Yeah.
It took a lot of missions to get enough shit to do that.
Yeah.
Knocked it out, knocked a couple like it just knocks you back a step on a few spots. But it's a huge setback.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck, this game just knocked progress out for like ignoring this mission. So anyway.
The game was like, please stop playing me.
3 weeks later, in the game time, so like 3 missions later, fucking bandits at the gate again. I'm like,
Oh my God.
damn it.
And you're in you're even probably in less of a
I'm actually
position
okay.
to
I've
fight
actually
that.
kind of got. Well, I'm in less a position of like building up my squad, but I've got some money. I've got some characters that have leveled up since then, and so I'm like, fuck it. I guess I gotta send a crew to deal with this. So I spend a ton of money like training up like this fucking hit squad of like these are the best guys I got. Sending them all in. I got this best. She's my best healer. She's my best grave digger. Like, all right, I'm gonna send them all. I get like 3 combats in, and they're all just like bleeding out and like dying. I'm just like, I haven't even made it to the boss. Like, and there's no.
The boss surely would have been some guy that just shit
all over my
day.
just all over my day.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, fuck. I was like, I should probably punch out. If I punch out, like, what happens? Like, I don't know. So I'm just gonna keep fucking soldiering on. So I get in another fight with these dudes, and one of my best characters from the beginning of the game, dope ass like level 6 highwayman, just gets got like fucking right out the gate. They just fucking stab him, bleed him out, fucking round 1. I'm like, he's fucking dead forever. He was also carrying like really high level like fucking trinkets that also just are gone. Usually you get to pick through the corpses and you get them back.
Yeah, no.
Well, since that happened and I was up against these characters, now I got a squad of 3 that are like fucking freaking out.
Yeah.
They're fucking being abusive to each other. They're losing their minds. I'm like, what am I gonna do here? I gotta punch out. So I'm gonna run from fucking combat, and basically the game's like, this is a level 6 fucking darkest mission. Like, you can't fucking run.
Oh no.
And I was like, what?
There's only one way this can.
And I was like, what? And it's like, well, you can run, but one of your characters is gonna die.
No, that already happened. I'm good. Right?
Yeah, totally. I'm like, one of my characters already did die, game. I think I've sacrificed enough blood on this mission. On this errand. I paid the price.
Yeah.
Like, let me go. It's like, nah. If you run on a darkest level mission, you have to like one of your characters will be randomly killed in the retreat.
Randomly killed it.
So I don't even get to like pick like, all right, you have to hold you hold off the fucking brigands while I run away and you die. Nah, it's just like, and I'm just looking at the 3 characters I got left, and they're all good, and they're all fucking decked out. And I'm just like, one of you's got to go to save the other 2. Mm-hmm. And so I'd fucking like punch it, and yeah, my fucking herbalist, she's like a sniper character. She got fucking killed on the retreat, but my other 2 fucking made it back to town. I sent them to their various fucking meditation and flagellation to go get dealt with. And but their sacrifice meant that the town didn't get ransacked, so I didn't lose. Okay. So the fact that I took on the mission and had 2 characters die on the mission meant that my guild didn't get fucked up.
I wonder what would happen if you sent in 2 like a scrub squad.
That is on my list of things to do next time, possibly. I'm wondering if I can send in like a bunch of fucking scrubs just on a suicide mission. Yeah. And just like send them in there and just watch them all get one-hitted.
Yeah. Just basically open the wagon door and be like, this way, please, to the front lines.
Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. It's fucking All Saints Day in town tomorrow. We're going to have free beer for everybody. In your honor. Yes. And so, anyway, I just thought that was kind of really, because we've talked about it a few times, and I mentioned how like I realized how the town is like the real progress. So when this thing kind of showed up like out of nowhere, and it's like, now we're gonna fuck your town up, I was like, what? Shit. Yeah. Like now the game's like gloves off. Game's like, nah. You thought the game was hard and crazy until now. Fucking
it just gets
gloves
dark.
are off.
Like, guess what,
guess what, motherfucker? This gets way darker before it's over. Like you thought all these characters you brought up are just gonna live through this shit.
So we'll see. And I'm interested to see if it even gets worse. Like it might. There seems to be no limit.
So last night, last night I started a long champion level mission. So that means like there's 2, like you have to camp out twice. You have to have like rations and stuff to last you through like a really long campaign. I made like 3 round rooms in before like Lisa got home and other shit went down. So it's sitting on my computer waiting to be played. So I'll let you know how that goes. But I went on this whole rant to say is that at its presentation and at its fundamental level of like how you interact with the game, like what moves you pick, what gear you bring on, like what trinkets you put on characters, like it's every one of them is a simple system, but stacked on top of them. You stack them all on top of each other, and the game is very complicated, and the game has no remorse for you not getting its complication.
It feels like every moment is like could be the final Jenga piece that brings the whole thing down.
Oh yeah,
right?
Speaking of Jenga, I was playing that outside. That was fun.
The life-size Jenga's sweet. But yeah, there's been a couple of times where just like a lapse of concentration where I was just preparing for a mission and I hit embark and I was like, wait a minute, I didn't take any food. Fuck me.
Yeah.
Like this will not end well because if you don't bring any food, your characters get real pissy.
Yeah.
And then they start freaking out and they lose health and everything fucking spirals out.
If you do everything perfect, there's still a pretty good chance they'll all go insane.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
They're gonna get pissed.
All you can do is mitigate your chances of getting fucked.
Yeah.
And so like if you forget to bring food or forget to bring light, like I actually forgot to bring any torches on a mission one time, which basically means there's a light level in the game, which is another system you have to manage that as it ticks down through like zones, and like the closer it gets to no light, the enemies get stronger and stronger and stronger. But you also get more critical hits and you get more loot for beating them. So it's this risk reward you can play where it's like, I think my group's doing a little bit low, I can let the light level get a little bit lower. The enemies will be harder, but you'll be rewarded more for taking them down. But you don't want to just not have the choice of what light level you're fighting at.
Right.
So just not having any torches on me, and it just goes down to nothing. And now I'm just in pitch black, hardest fucking enemies. My squad was not up to that task, and I just pushed it as far as they could go until I was like, I'm just going to come and collect as much loot as I can before I punch out.
Yeah.
So anyway, these really kind of simple systems on its face, which the town scenario and like how you train people up and how you prepare for stuff reminds me a lot of Honeycamp. Like that screen, it's a single screen town where you drag the icon of the one character onto the bar to make them go relax. You drag it's exactly like
wow.
that. Yeah, it reminded like
stole my shit. No, I'm not 100% certain that came out first, but yeah.
No, but that system works perfectly well. There's no fucking around. I don't gotta like take over control of a character and walk them over to the bar or whatever. You know, it's just like, all right, this guy goes here, this guy goes here.
Yeah.
It allows me to manage
even down to the STDs.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. So it's these simple systems and like really distilled presentation allows you to manage very complex systems and interactions quickly and intuitively, and you know what you're doing when you do something, and then you got to deal with the game being the game. And it leads to kind of some pretty interesting stories for what is essentially a 2D game that's very menu-based. And so it's really good. I really like it. I'll report back on how much more it kicks me in the face. But so far, actually, to this point, I feel like I've been doing pretty well, so to speak. I've only had like 6 or 7 characters die, which I think is good.
Yeah, I'd say it's good.
But it's interesting to play a game like this where you do have to kind of like make discretion the better part of valor, where it's like, all right, I can stick this out and get my team fucking wiped, or one of you's got to go to save the other 2, and then I got to spend like 10 G's in 4 weeks getting those other 2 like head straight before I can send them back out. But it's still cheaper than getting characters back from level 1 back to like being like gangsters.
Yeah.
So you kind of constantly have to make that call of like, is this guy worth it? Like if they're like a level 1 character and they've lost their shit and they're bleeding out, it's like, dude, get out of here.
Yeah.
You can just cut them loose. It's like, I got to make room in my fucking
You would
barracks.
hate them for it.
Yeah, I got to make room in my barracks for somebody who can hold their shit together. So you kind of got to. I never found myself just driving a car full of bodies. Like I don't just like send a bunch of scrubs on a mission to gather loot and then cut them all loose after when they come back all banged up.
Yeah.
Like I've never done that. But I have had to make the calculated decision of like this level 1 guy has like 150 stress and he only still has level 1 gear and like level 1 skills.
I have no remorse anymore. First I was
Yeah,
like,
you
oh,
got-
that's
you
so
got-
sad. Now I'm just like, get the fuck out, you dead weight piece of shit.
Why are you here? You're cut.
Yeah.
So you're cut. So cut.
I like to imagine that transition happened over like 1 level.
As soon as I realized I had to do something, I was like, oh, fuck this guy. I gotta do it.
That said, I do have a favorite character, which I didn't want to have happen, but I realized that I was spending a lot of money and effort keeping this fucker alive.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like, I always kind of look at him sideways, like, you better fucking
He's like your money
pull your
pit.
weight. You better pull your weight. But he's really good. I mean, he's actually the highwayman from the beginning of the game.
Oh, wow.
Like, he's really good. He's really powerful in combat and whatnot, and I've gotten really good at using him. So,
The next time.
but he never gets out of a mission.
He's also
like
your
that.
play style. That's like the style you play in every game. It's like the rogue gunslinger guy.
Yeah.
So I can see why you would have an attachment to him for a lot of reasons.
I guess.
I was going to say, the next time that you have to pull out of a high-level mission, it's like, we're going to take one of your guys. It's going to take him.
I know. Well, that's actually the fear now. It's like, now that I know that, when I send them on, like, now you got to know if you send somebody on a darkest mission, there's a high
You
probability.
better get through that.
There's a high probability one of them ain't coming back. Even if things go squirrely, it's a guarantee that at least
It's
one
guaranteed.
guaranteed at
If
least
you
one of
pull
them's
out.
dying
Yeah.
if you don't complete the mission.
Even if, I mean, the chances are small that you'll come back with your team. It's so difficult on its own, and then if you pull out, that's a for sure.
Yeah, the fact that I do kind of, but all over the game, I see design decisions that I was like, that's really interesting that they did it that way, or like, especially like that's not a penalty on anything up to like a level 5 mission. If you punch out, you take stress damage, your characters get a little crazy, but you can kind of mitigate that down as long as you have enough cash.
Yeah.
But when you sign on to the darkest,
But then shit gets real.
when you sign on this dark, the shit's real, and it's like, and it gives you like a warning, like, you fucking sure about this? It's like, shit's
sure,
about to go
motherfucker?
down, and you're like, you got to be like, yup, let's fucking do it, game. And they're like, all right, fucking 3 blocks in, get the fuck out of here.
The most interesting thing that stands out to me from everything you've said is the whole like sacrifice for the ultimate greater good, right?
Yeah.
And that is such like I kind of forgot like how satisfying of a game mechanic that really can be, right? And the 2 examples that immediately jumped to my mind, one of them is actually Pokemon Go. Because
You send that kid out to the street to get that Bulbasaur. And that bus takes him, but I pick up his
man.
phone, and I got that.
no, I mean, because like you said, the whole candy system, right? You essentially, in order to evolve the Pidgey, and maybe you can tell me if there's an easier way, but the only way I found when I played for the day that I played it was to catch a ton of Pidgeys, throw them all into the grinder, right?
Yeah.
So you could evolve your main
Find the one with
Pidge.
the highest CP and then just chuck it.
Yeah, exactly, right.
That's
And
what I'm
it's
doing- that's what I'm doing with
oddly
Magic.
satisfying to
It is.
get it, take his candies, and then fuck him, right? Like,
Listen, I mean, like, everybody's like, oh, I don't want to, like, catch another one of these. I already have one. And I'm like, okay, yes, but you get XP, you get the Stardust, which you also need to, like, power them up, and you get their candies, and then you get to fucking give them away. Yeah.
So there's that, and then the other example that came to my mind as you were talking was Resident Evil 4, just the inventory system. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like,
Yeah.
you had an X number, you had a little grid of squares there, and each item took
I
up
probably
a certain
spent half
amount.
my time playing that game just staring at that phone.
Organizing the inventory, right? Yeah.
How can I get maximum fucking
Right.
firepower into this briefcase?
And then every once in a while, like you have to make that sacrifice, and you're like, no, not my last herb, right? But it's
Right.
like,
Okay, so that's actually another specific thing that happens in Darkest Dungeon. So you have an inventory.
that's
You have an
true.
inventory that has like 20 slots in it, I think.
Uh-huh.
And that includes your food, your torches, like if you bring any bandages to stop bleeding, there's a whole bunch of items you can bring, like shovels to knock down, like barricades. These are things that you kind of need to go on your little quest. And so you can, before you leave, you provision. You have to buy all these things, but then they also fill up these slots. So then, as you're playing the mission, sometimes you'll come across a chest like right in the beginning of a mission that's got like 10,000 gold in it, and you're like, oh shit! Look at all this gold. You can't. Gold stacks to like 1,500 blocks for each block, and like
You gotta shed something.
and so it's
Yeah.
like, if you want to take the money home, do I drop my bandages? But now if I come across the fucking enemy that stabs me and I'm bleeding, I got no way to stop that bleeding. And that's bad. Especially in the high level shit. Well, they will fuck your day up if you let your characters bleed. And so you constantly making that, they got to make that. And I've struggled staring at that screen in Darkest Dungeon, just being like maybe if I get rid of my shovels, I'm making a gamble that I'm not going to come across any more obstacles.
Right.
it's a lot, $2,500 for this gem. I need the money, but if I die, I don't get shit. So like, you got to kind of like, do I keep my supplies or do I try to make money? And you're kind of like always playing. And some of the missions where maybe you go in and you have to get out with 3 specific items, and they take slots.
Oh no!
And that's killer. So it's like to complete the quest, you have to put them in your inventory, which means booting either supplies or money, and it's constantly just like, oh, which one of you is going to go? Do I drop $2,500 and keep my bandages, or do I drop that and keep the money and basically hope I don't get fucking stabbed before I get out? Yeah.
So that's a really common theme then, like loss.
That's what the game is. It's
when the game fires up, the first thing it presents you with, besides like an opening cinematic, is basically a pop-up window that says, this is not a game that you like win. Like this game, I think the first line is like, this game is about making the best of a bad situation. Like your characters will die. You will have to abandon quests. Things will not go your way. It's about making the best of that situation and trying to like power through it and like and make it through in spite of it. And like it expects a lot of you, and it's not going to hold your hand. Like if you're still cool, hit okay. Like that's the first thing that comes up every time you start it up. Not just like the first time. Like every time it says that.
There's I believe it's Subnautica, but it may be one of my other like underwater games. It does the same thing where it's like you get a grid and like certain things take up more like space than others do, and like one of the things is like air tanks will take up like 4 of the things, and so it's just like, well shit, like I need air but I need the stuff. Damn, you know. Then like if you're carrying around like, you know, stuff to like fight off like the creatures, or like I think one of them is like a propel thing, and that takes up like 9 slots or something like that, and I was just like, shit.
Yeah, that was the Resident Evil 4 thing. Like it's like, I got this sniper rifle, but man, it takes up like 20 slots in my fucking inventory. And then you get the new briefcase, and you're like, oh shit, all this room for activities, carrying all the guns, and then instantly you're out of room again. How? I just had so much room. But
is there any game on Earth that is more masterful than Resident Evil 4 at that, like, you always appear to have exactly enough resources? Like, I've never seen anything like
The Last of Us does that so good, where it's like you always, I couldn't believe how much that the way they ration out your supplies in that game is fucking perfect. It's really good.
Yeah, and Resident Evil 4 gives you a really strong sense of like player agency, of like when you find the herbs and you like mix the red and the green herb together, and now it takes up like 1 less, like now you broke it down to 2 slots, but now it's more powerful. And managing that briefcase and like finding the things that are kind of hidden but not really, like that whole thing of you never feel like, oh, the game gave me an herb and I want to use it in this boss fight. It's like, dude, I found this shit like 10 minutes ago. I found this other shit 5 minutes ago. Now I found a spot to fit it. I dropped some fucking other shit that I didn't need. Like, you know, you always feel like, yep, I got this herb in this boss fight because of me, because I'm good. When you come to find out, most people, as long as they're not completely stupid, they've got that herb in that boss fight.
Yeah.
But sometimes people are good at, like, really good at the game, and you can stockpile and you have to start dumping shit.
Yeah.
You know, you find that, like on multiple playthroughs, you find that. Like,
I've never seen that outside of The Last of Us, so it is rare that a game can pace that well. And and I realized at some point that has to be true, right? Like you couldn't really play The Last of Us without the supplies, even though they're dripping it out perfectly. At the same time, like they're doing it in a way that everybody always has what they need. Still, it's crazy. It's
to progress. I mean, but it also makes it easier or harder. Like if you're really good at Resident Evil 4. And you're good at your managing your briefcase and all that kind of stuff. Sure. When you get to that boss, you're more prepared than somebody who's just like, fuck it. Then they're just blasting away and wasting all their ammo and all that kind of shit.
Right.
Like you have a better chance. But yeah, they always make sense. Like make care to make sure that before the boss, the classic pre-boss fight room, where it's like, oh shit, there's a lot of ammo.
There's a lot of ammo and healing, and
shit's about to. And there's like a save point right here. Shit's about to go down.
Yeah, that's actually
Mass
one of the
Effect
things.
Does that a lot.
That's one of the things that makes me really nervous when I'm playing Solus Project. I think because like it'll have a save point and some supplies, and I'm like, is this when it's going to happen? Is this when I get like fucked up?
Right. I do find it very amusing that as you play the Solus Project, you're still looking over your shoulder like, when's it coming? This whole thing. Because it's a very like solitary exploration game, but you haven't played 1 minute of that game without being like, this is just an elaborate setup to jump. At some point, it's going to jump me
I'm
and kill
very
me.
suspicious of that game. No, I'm probably hilarious to watch play it in like the VR, especially when those little like black ball things are around. 'Cause I'll jump every single time they show up, and like I'm constantly like, it's going.
Well, we went way over the darkest dungeon, like 2-minute story. I think it was like a half
Lightning
hour at
round
least.
quotes.
Yeah.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my stories of Darkest Dungeon. I think it led to some other discussion.
You're making me want to play the game. Actually.
Yeah, I know.
It's really good.
You should.
It's really boiled down and it's fun. It's like really simply presented, and as much as time as it takes to play when you're thinking about it, it's you can make shit happen without wasting days of your life.
Yeah.
My only, and maybe there is, but I mean, my only thing is like I really wish there was like an easy mode. Is there?
No.
No.
I don't think so.
It's just the fuck you mode.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, like the easy.
I mean,
So, all right, I'm not trying to restart the discussion, but I just want to.
But you're
Put it back up.
I want to bring this up. So, one of the other design decisions in the game is so there's different tiers of missions. You probably heard me mention going on like a champion mission versus like a darkest mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's also like apprentice level missions, which is like green, they're like beginner levels. And then there's veteran level missions that are like in the middle, right? And then there's champion. So in almost every other game I've ever played, when you have characters of certain like levels or abilities or whatever, once you level up to a certain point, you pretty much start crushing the enemies that are below your level. Like we were talking about like a couple of podcasts ago, and you're saying like Dark Souls kind of does a good way to mitigate that.
Yeah.
So in this game, basically what
It's
happens...
like the skeletons in Skyrim. You walk into a cave and you're just like, get out of here.
Right, but when you're low level, you're like, they're a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
But once
yeah.
you get like higher level, you're just like, all right, I'll fucking crush you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Literally one hit and you're like, goodbye.
So what this game does is by tiering the levels, no hero will go on a mission below their level. So like, you can't send like a level 5 gangster on an apprentice mission and have them just one hit every enemy and kick the shit out of everything.
And power level the
and
team.
just
Yeah.
crush
Yeah.
everything and just be in no danger.
Huh.
If you try to make them do that, they're like, this is below my abilities. Get the fuck out. No. And they just flat out, there's nothing you can do. Like, if you have them all in your little party and you click on a mission that's below them, they all leave the party.
Oh.
They're just like, and they're all just like, nope, you can't, don't waste my time with this trivial
Don't
bullshit.
insult me.
No, straight up.
Yeah.
That's what the little pop-up window, there's little things that pop up, they say. They're like, don't insult me with this shit. Like, this is trivial. Like, this is way
Great, I
below
like
my
that.
abilities. Or somebody will be like, that's not how you gain mastery, by doing things you already can crush. It's like, nah, I can't waste my
Yeah.
time. I need to be challenged. And so it's like, so the game constantly makes it so you can never just crush. So like, by the time you're level 2, which is the last level you can go on an apprentice level mission, you're just barely scraping those missions and like making it so they're not hard. And the second you become level 3, you can't go on apprentice level missions anymore. That character has to go on veteran level missions. And now they're rooks in
Yeah.
veteran.
They're starting
Like
on.
now they're in their level. They were crushing at kind of, never really crushing, but they were sustainable. They were good in apprentice, but now in level, they're the rookies. And level 3 and 4 guys, like those guys can handle the veteran levels, but they're like barely holding their own, like just like barely hanging on. And then they get to level 4 and they're like kind of doing it. And then you go into champion, and those guys that are just into the champion level are like borderline useless in champion.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
you need to like get them to level 5 and get them like level 5 gear and like level 5 skills before you even send them out the door, because they'll just get stomped.
Yeah.
And so it's not only is there no easy mode, there's no way to like play the game easily. Like, there's no way to like just send a level, like a hit crew into a mission and know you're going to crush it.
There's no bubble you can like. All right, if I just can like push through to this part of the game, and then it gets it's just
So the second your characters get
weak.
better skills, better gear, better ability, like the level of challenge rises to meet those characters.
Well, the reason I asked, and I kind of even take it back already, because the reason I asked is like, well, I'd really like to explore sort of the mechanics of this game, the different decisions that they'd made without having to suffer through it. But as you were talking about it, I'm like, actually, I think the suffering is where it's at.
It's part of
the
it.
game is.
And then you really gotta like, when you're staring at that screen and you're seeing that character at death's door just like blinking, and you're just fucking just like, don't you do it? Don't
you dare.
Fucking do it. Don't you dare it. Oh, and you see the target. You see the game does a thing where it signals what character is attacking what character before the attack happens.
Oh.
So it's like when you see that character that's like one of your guys is like just bleeding out. It's like, come on, no. And then you see like one of the enemies, like they step up to fight and like the little fucking icon pops up underneath it and you see that they're targeting that guy. It's like, fuck. Dodge it. You can dodge it. Oh, god damn it.
That's when I just do what I used to do when I was about to lose a StarCraft match and just turn my PC off.
So that's another thing is that this game only allows you to have one save. There's no like save scumming, so you can't. You can only have one save. I think it allows you to have 3 slots, but they're mutually exclusive. Like I think the mission that I started last night, if I fire it up on my other laptop, it'll sync the save to that, and I'll be mid that mission. Like I can't even go back to town. Like, you change a screen, the game updates to it, and you can't get away from it. So it's like any event that happens, it's synced to some fucking server.
That's like Minecraft. There's no going back after. Yeah.
So they go out of their way to make so you can't save scum it. You can't fucking anything that happens is pretty much permanent, both good and bad, you know.
Yeah.
But it leads to some intense stuff for what ostensibly is pretty simple presentation.
Ostensibly.
Yeah, I know. I chewed on.
It's a game worth playing for many reasons, lots of reasons. It's a really good game.
I feel like I want to play it like in the middle of the woods around a campfire or something. Like really experience
put in the atmosphere.
Darkness.
I mean, it's kind of like that. Like, it's kind of like about being in that place.
Right,
like,
exactly.
Yeah, it would work.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny because I did find myself in that place like a few days. I was playing at like 1 in the morning. I was by myself and the room was all dark. But
you're just deep in it.
But it's not like it's a 3D game. It's not like playing Amnesia in the dark. You know, it's still at the end of the day, it's a 2D game where it's kind of skeletal animation.
It's
kind of got like the same kind of animation type.
It's scary. It's a little creepy.
System you got going.
Yeah.
So, like it's got this, like it's made out of parts.
Right.
But then also, and I mentioned this again, and we're gonna wrap up here in a second. But also like how they do the attacks and like the stuff. It's all like static images, like plastered up and like panned across and like showed like particle effects.
I assume
it
it's
feels
just
real good.
insane polish. So
Oh yeah. No, it's. The game is basically Final Fantasy for NES that you can rerun with different people in your party, like over and over, because you have a party of 4. Enemies are never more than a party of 4. Like you always have a party of 4. They got different classes. They have different abilities. You're kind of constantly picking out which ones you want and then sending them out. But then with permadeath and all the other stuff that we already all talked about, and all the other systems of like mitigating their mental health and making sure that they're not only not dying but not going crazy. Because if they go crazy, they take the rest of your team with them. And then just polished to like a mirror shine. Like they just polished the shit out of it. Like there's really nothing in the game that is. I don't think it's really crashed on me. I haven't lost any progress. I haven't lost my save. Now I'm fucking...
You don't have to re-log in every single time you boot it up.
Yeah.
No, and actually, like I can't get away from it. Like if I go to a different computer, it's just like here, you were right here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like,
no,
finish this dungeon.
I got you.
Bitch.
Oh yeah, you thought you were gonna go back to the Hamlet?
Yeah, right.
Think you can go back to Hamlet and get some torches? No. You have to run this out.
You can do that after this mission.
Yeah, finish this first.
Yeah. So it's good. Lots of interesting systems and decisions, and I definitely recommend it.
Yeah. I may need to actually, but it's good.
Leads to some cool stories.
How much was it on Steam?
I think it was 30 is the full price. It was like $30. When I got it, I think it was on sale for like 15.
Right, so I'm gonna wait for a sale.
In the podcast now.
Just like, get me the fuck out of here.
Go check to see if it's on sale real quick. All right. I think with that note, we can probably wrap her up. Thanks everybody for coming in once again.
Yeah.
Check us out on our website, buffalogamespace.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all the fun places.
Merry Christmas when this thing actually comes out. Reg.
2018, Merry Christmas.
Game of the Year podcast be out first.
Right.
Anybody anything else?
Check out Futscher's new mixtape, D-Skreet.
when you were like talking about leveling up them up and like making them gangsters, I really wanted to like say gangsters and say D-Skreet.
All right, so what's happening is you can also rename any of your characters, and I have not named any of my characters yet. I just let whatever the default name goes, and I've decided that any character that makes it to level 6 gets a name.
All right. So the first name is D-Skreet. Yeah.
First highwayman that makes it. They're kind of the most gangsterish characters.
Yeah.
Just literally
first
like
highwayman
that makes
letter
level
D,
6 gets D-Skreet. Oh, I see. Yeah. All right.
And with that,
I'll fill you on the death of D-Skreet.
Because it will happen.
next week on the Buffalo Game Space podcast. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.